I want to ask you something. When you walk out to your garden and find a tomato plant drooping, leaves going yellow at the bottom, spots showing up where there were none yesterday, what is the first thing you feel? Not what you think, what you feel. For most gardeners, it is a quiet kind of giving up. The plant looks bad enough that the mind starts calculating without being asked. How many weeks are left in the season? Whether there is enough summer left to bother? Whether the space would be better used pulling this one out and starting clean? That feeling makes complete sense. You have been out there paying attention, and the plant is failing anyway, and the summer is not getting any longer. Here is what I want you to consider. That feeling, that quiet giving up, is the most expensive mistake that happens in a home garden. Not the overwatering, not the pests, not the disease. The decision to walk away from a plant that still has everything it needs to come back. I have watched people pull tomato plants in late July that were 3 weeks from the best harvest of their season. The plant looked done. It was not done. It was stressed, and stressed is not the same as finished. What most people do not know, and what nobody in the business of selling new transplants has any reason to tell them, is that a tomato plant that looks half dead is almost never half dead. It is struggling. And struggling plants respond. They respond faster and more completely than most gardeners ever get to see, because most gardeners give up before the response arrives. What I am going to walk you through today is how to read a struggling tomato plant the right way and what to do about it in the right order. Not a guess, not a list of 12 diseases that leaves you more confused than when you started. The plain method, step by step, worked out over many years on this ground. Some of what I am going to tell you will feel wrong the first time you hear it. The last move especially. Stay for that one, because it is the move that feels most wrong in the moment, and it is the one that changes everything. My name is Elias. I am Amish, and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I have been growing tomatoes on this land for most of my life. If this kind of plain, practical gardening is what you come here for, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. It is free, it takes 1 second, and a lot of good people are already here. Before you touch the plant, before you water it or spray it or prune anything at all, spend 2 minutes looking at it closely. The way you look at something you genuinely want to understand. A tomato that is struggling will tell you nearly everything you need to know if you know where to look. The leaves are where to look. If the whole plant is wilting top to bottom, everything drooping at once, that is almost always a water problem. But here is the piece most people miss. Too much water and too little water look almost exactly the same from the outside. Both cause wilting. Both cause that same limp droop. You cannot tell which one by looking at the plant, so you push your finger 2 inches down into the soil at the base. Wet and cold coming back means the roots are sitting in water. Dry and powdery coming back means the plant is thirsty. 2 opposite problems. 2 opposite fixes. You have to know which one you are dealing with before you do anything else. Yellow leaves starting at the bottom and climbing the plant, that is usually too much water over time, or a plant running low on something it needs from the soil. Brown or black spots on the leaves, especially on the lower ones near the ground, spreading upward as the weeks go on, that is a disease working its way up from the soil. Leaves that curl in the heat of the afternoon but open back up by evening. That is heat stress, and the plant is actually holding its own. Fine webbing on the undersides of the leaves, or a dusty speckled look on the surface, that is spider mites. A whole branch stripped bare overnight with no obvious insect anywhere on it, that is a hornworm. It is on the plant right now. They hide better than almost anything in a garden. One more worth knowing. If the plant wilts and yellows on one side at a time or one branch at a time and does not recover overnight no matter how you water, that may be a deeper disease working in the root system. I will be honest with you, that one is harder to turn around than the others, but the steps I am about to show you will still give you a real chance at a last harvest before the season closes. Take your 2 minutes. Figure out roughly what knocked it back. Then everything that follows will make sense. Before we go into the first move, tell me in the comments what state you garden in and which of these your plant is showing right now. Wilting with wet soil underneath, yellowing climbing from the bottom, spots on the leaves, or something you cannot quite place. Write it down. I read every single one, and I will tell you exactly where I would start for your situation. The first thing I put on a struggling tomato is mulch. Most people treat mulch as the finishing step, something you put down at the end when the other work is done. On this farm, it goes down first because without it, half of what comes after will not hold. 4 to 5 inches of straw or dried leaves around the base of the plant. Pulled back just slightly from the main stem so it is not sitting directly against the bark. That is the whole action. It takes 5 minutes. And it does more useful work than almost anything else you will do for this plant. 3 things happen when it goes down. First, soil moisture evens out. The plant stops swinging from dry to soaking wet and back again. And those swings are among the most damaging things that happen to a tomato across a full season. Second, the root zone stays cooler through the worst of the summer heat, and roots sitting in overheated ground stop functioning the way they should. Third, and this one matters as much as the other two, it stops soil from splashing up onto the lower leaves when you water. That splash is how most disease gets its start on a tomato. The problem lives in the soil. Water throws it onto the leaves, and from there it climbs. Mulch cuts that off before it begins. My wife Esther connected this for me before I had seen it clearly myself. 3 summers back, she had a row of plants develop leaf spots early in the season that she could not explain, while the row directly beside them stayed completely clean. The difference turned out to be a layer of old straw from the previous fall that she had not yet cleared away. Broken down over the winter, but still thick enough to stop soil from moving when she watered. The clean row had it. The spotted row was bare ground. She did not need anyone to explain what that meant. Put the mulch down first. Everything after goes on a steadier foundation because of it. With the mulch in place, the next thing to address is the water itself. Unsteady watering is behind more struggling tomato plants than any other single cause I have seen over the years. Go back to that finger test. Soil came back wet and cold. Stop watering entirely. Give it 3 to 4 days to dry out before another drop goes in. If the plant is in a container with no drainage holes at the bottom, that is the whole problem. Punch holes through the bottom or move it into something that drains. Soil came back dry, water slowly and deeply at the base of the plant, not overhead, at the base. Water until moisture is several inches down when you push your finger back in, then keep it steady from this point forward. Every 3 to 4 days in ordinary summer weather, more often when the heat is genuinely heavy, an inch or 2 at the root level each time. Here is what most people are never told about tomatoes. It is not the amount of water that matters most, it is the steadiness. A plant cycling from bone dry to soaking wet and back again week after week is under a constant low-level stress that wears it down gradually, lowers its ability to fight off disease, and makes recovery from anything else much harder. Stabilize the water and you remove the most persistent source of ongoing damage. The plant can then begin to use what you give it instead of just surviving the swings. 2 habits from here on. Water at the base, not from above, and water in the morning, not in the evening. Wet foliage sitting through a cool night is how most of the problems on this list find their opening. Those 2 changes will alter the health of a tomato garden in ways that become very clear by the end of the season. Mulch down, water steady. Now pick up the pruners. Go through the plant carefully and cut off everything that is clearly dead or dying. Yellow leaves at the bottom. Brown spotted ones moving upward. Any stem that has gone soft or discolored, cut close to the main stem and cut clean. Then strip every leaf that is touching or nearly touching the ground, whether it looks healthy or not. Those low leaves are the first to pick up disease from the soil and the fastest to pass it further up the plant. Every dead or dying leaf you remove is work the plant no longer has to do. A struggling plant is spending energy maintaining those leaves, energy it could be sending toward recovery. Take them off and the plant redirects what it has. And if disease is part of what is happening, those affected leaves are how it travels. Remove them and bag them, not the compost pile. Out of the garden entirely. Wipe your pruner blades with rubbing alcohol between cuts if the plant shows any sign of disease. 5 seconds per cut. It stops you from moving the problem from one branch to the next on the blade itself. For a plant that has gone very far down, sometimes a hard cut is the right move. Take the whole plant back by a third, cutting just above a point where clean green growth is still visible. It looks severe, but a tomato answers a hard prune by pushing new growth from below faster than most people expect. I have watched plants that looked completely finished come back from that kind of cut and still give a real harvest before the frost came. If you are looking for a good clean pair of pruners for this kind of work, I have linked the ones I use on this farm in the description. Let me say one thing, and then I will not bring it up again. I put everything I know about keeping a lawn, the soil, the weeds, the fixes that actually hold, into a book. 2 more are coming, one for the pests, one for your pets. All of it is over at eliashomestead.shop. If you want it, it is there. That is all. There is no point in nursing a plant toward health if the thing that knocked it down is still working against it. If heat has been the problem and it is still blazing outside, put shade cloth over the plant for the worst hours of the afternoon. 30 to 40% shade reduction is the right amount. Full shade slows the plant too much. Partial shade through the peak of the day gives it room to recover without stopping its work. If you want to know what I use on this farm for shade cloth, the link is in the description. If you found pests, deal with them that same day. Hornworms you pick off by hand, every one you find. Look carefully because they press flat against the stem and hold still and are very easy to walk past. Aphids and spider mites you knock off with a hard spray of water aimed at the undersides of the leaves, then follow with insecticidal soap if they return. A plant cannot recover and fight at the same time. It will lose both fights. If the plant has flopped sideways from wind or heavy rain, stake it back up that same day. A stem lying on wet soil is an invitation to exactly the ground-level disease you are already trying to stop. Get it upright. Tie it gently with something soft, not wire or string that cuts in. Keep it there for the rest of the season. Remove the pressure. Give the plant a stable place to do its work. A recovering plant does need help building its strength back, but a heavy dose of strong fertilizer on a root system that is already under stress can burn what is left of those roots and push out thin, weak growth the plant cannot support. You see a brief green response and then a harder crash than what you started with. Start with seaweed extract. Dilute it according to the label. Apply it slowly at the base through a watering can, not overhead. My grandmother kept dried seaweed in the farm store and used it on anything in the garden that had been through a hard stretch. She knew it helped long before anyone explained to her why. What it does is help the roots open back up and start receiving again after being under stress. Before you ask a plant to take in a real feeding, you help the roots become capable of absorbing one. The door has to be open before anything useful can walk through it. 2 to 3 days after the seaweed, when the plant is beginning to show the first signs of responding, bring in a diluted liquid fertilizer at half the label strength. Something balanced, not a high nitrogen formula built to push fast leaf growth, because fast leaf growth on a recovering plant is not what you want. You want steady, even recovery. Feed lightly, and the plant uses it well. Feed heavily, and you create new problems alongside the old ones. One exception. If overwatering was the primary cause and the roots have been sitting in water, hold off on any feeding for a full week. Let the roots dry out and begin to function again before asking them to take anything up. Rest before work. I have linked the liquid seaweed extract I use in the description. You can also find it at most garden centers if you want it sooner. This is the move most people resist. I understand that completely. You are trying to save this plant because you want tomatoes from it. Removing the flowers feels like working directly against that goal. Here is what is actually happening. A sick plant trying to recover is already doing one very large job. Asking it to produce fruit at the same time is asking it to run 2 full jobs when it does not have the strength for one. Making a tomato is expensive work for a plant. It draws from the leaves, the roots, the stem, everything at once. A plant trying to heal and fruit together will almost always do both things poorly. Pinch off the flowers. Remove the very small fruits that have just begun to form. Do it cleanly with your fingers or a pair of scissors. Every flower and small fruit you take off is energy going straight into new leaves, new roots, new stem tissue. 2 or 3 weeks from now, when you can see new growth pushing from the top of the plant and the whole thing looks settled and stable, let it flower again. What comes from that second round will be more than anything it would have managed trying to do both jobs at once while still struggling. My neighbor Jacob tried this 2 summers back. 4 plants in poor shape. He could not bring himself to remove the flowers on 2 of them and followed this on the other 2. 3 weeks later, the 2 he had pinched were upright and growing strongly from the base to the tip. The 2 he had left untouched had not moved forward and had dropped most of their flowers on their own anyway, because the plant could not carry them. It will drop what it cannot sustain. Better to make that choice deliberately and early than to let the plant make it under distress. Not every plant can be saved. I will say that plainly. If the main stem at soil level is brown and soft and collapsed all the way around, the plant is gone. If the roots are black and have gone to slime when you look underneath, that one is finished. No method changes either of those outcomes. But if the main stem is still firm and green anywhere, and there is still root holding in the ground, there is something to work with. And most of the time, when I actually go and look, that is exactly what I find. The plant is closer to coming back than it looks from the outside, almost always closer. One more thing before we close, because this one changes the way people think about tomatoes permanently. A tomato can grow new roots directly from its stem, not just from the root ball at the base, from the bare stem itself. Hill soil up around the lower part of the main stem, or lay a badly damaged plant sideways in a shallow trench and cover most of the stem with loose soil. New roots will push out from every buried point along it. The plant that grows from that expanded root system is stronger than before because it now has more surface pulling water and nutrition from the ground beneath it. This works for any plant that has been damaged near the base, had roots compromised by too much water, or simply gone tall and weak in the lower stem. Hill the soil up. Give it more buried length to root from. A tomato takes that opportunity every time it is offered, and it comes back stronger for it. Tell me in the comments what state you garden in and what your tomatoes looked like this past season. Plants that struggled and came back, ones you pulled that you wonder now might have had more left in them, or ones that never recovered no matter what you tried. Write it down specifically. I read every single one, and I will tell you exactly what I would look at first for your situation next year. If this was useful, press the like button and share it with someone whose garden has a struggling plant in it right now. Every video on this channel starts from the same place. The honest answer is almost always simpler and less expensive than what you are being offered. That is what I try to show you each time. Thank you for the time you gave me today. I do not take that lightly. Stay patient, stay watchful, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just beginning to remember.